Okay, remote learners, I am going to redo my class video from Wednesday, February 10th. And we're going to see if this works a little bit better. So today we're talking about developing a thesis statement. And by the time you watch this, you should have received your Annie chart back. And an Annie chart was basically a brainstorming activity where you listed affirmative arguments, you listed negative arguments, and you listed interesting information. And the emphasis on that was arguments. I hope it helped you really grapple with your topic. And our next step is going to be to figure out what are the 3 strongest arguments that would defend your topic. So these are some steps we're going to take. And before we take these steps, I would like each of you to write at the top of this handout, which you should have on your Google Classroom. Write this statement. Every thesis has a central claim. Every thesis has a central claim. And that central claim is basically found in your research question. So if your research question is, does social media harm teenagers, and you're affirmative, then your central claim is social media harms teenagers. Excuse me. Or if your position is negative, your central claim is that social media does not harm teenagers. Or maybe you would change that to social media benefits teenagers. So that's what you're going to start with. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute. So step 1 in developing a thesis you did last night. You brainstormed supporting arguments for your position. You also did that for the opposing position. So you should kind of be seeing the 2 sides of your topic. And what we're going to do today is to, number 2, evaluate your list to see which arguments are related and can be combined, and which arguments you think that you will have the most support for. So there's 2 things you're going to do. The first thing is you're going to look for the arguments under your position, and you're going to try to put a star by those things that you think are particularly strong or that you feel like you have a lot of evidence to support. And for some of you, I put stars. I was like, oh, this is good. So I might have put a star there. If I didn't put a star, it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means it didn't stand out to me at the time I was reading it. So that's one thing you're going to do. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to see if any of your points can be combined. So maybe you're doing gun control, and you're saying that the United States should pass gun control. And you've got arguments like guns are used in crime, guns kill people, guns are used in suicide, and guns are used in terrorism to kill people. So there's like a common theme there. I'm sorry, it's a morbid theme, but the theme is death. And so guns cause death. That could be your big argument. And you've grouped a whole bunch of things from your Annie chart into one kind of umbrella statement. And that kind of goes to number 3, where you're going to distill your list of arguments down to 3 arguments. And you want to make sure your arguments are A, specific enough to be understandable, B, broad enough to have multiple subpoints. So you're going to have subpoints under this. So you don't want to be so detailed. You don't want to say the guns should be banned because criminals smuggle them across the border. That is just way too specific. That could be a subpoint under a bigger argument that guns promote crime. And then number 3, your arguments need to be defensible by evidence. And so for some of you, I wrote to the side, is this defensible? Like, to my way of thinking, it seemed a little out in left field, but perhaps you've come up with some evidence that supports it. So I'm going to take you through the rest of the sheet, but I will tell you that what I want you to concentrate on your next assignment is to turn in the rough draft of a thesis, and that takes us through number 3. But pretty quickly after we do this, you're going to revise that thesis. So I do want to go over 4 and 5 with you. So when you come up with a thesis, you want to make sure your arguments, this is number 4, are listed in parallel form. So that means that they need to have the same sentence structure, like they're all listed as a word or all as a phrase, all as a clause. And I've given an example here. This first one, you'll see the central claim. School uniforms should be abolished because, there's my central claim. And my reasons are all single words. They're all adjectives. They are tasteless, limiting, and expensive. Same topic, same central claim. The next one, I'm going to use verb phrases. School uniforms should be abolished because they provide tasteless fashion, limit individual expression, and involve greater expense. So notice each of those little phrases start with a verb. And then my third one, I'm actually listing clauses. School uniforms should be abolished because they are not fashionable, they smother individual expression, and they cost more than regular clothes. So you want to make sure that your thesis has the same parallel structure. B says same part of speech. Like I said, have them all start with nouns or adjectives or verbs. And then C, this is really important. You want to try to collect your reasons, your supporting arguments, into some related categories or themes. So my topic that you'll see more of next week is that a physical border between Mexico and the U.S. is justified. That's my central claim. And when I did my Annie chart, I had things like illegal immigrants cost American taxpayers. Illegal immigrants take jobs from Americans. Illegal immigrants send money out of the country. Those are very specific. I also had things like politically it's important for a country to protect its borders. That it's important for a country to establish guidelines for citizenship and determine who can become citizens. And then socially, I had some points about that illegal immigrants are often a part of crime, that they live beneath the poverty level, that illegal immigration just leads to more illegal immigration. These are people off the radar. And so what I did here is I collapsed this into 3 general categories. So a physical border between Mexico and the U.S. is justified by economic, political, and social reasons. So that was my common theme. Those were the related categories. Now, with the school uniform example, I was thinking, well, who do school uniforms affect? They affect students, they affect staff, and they affect the whole school community. So that's where I went. School uniforms should be abolished because they oppress students. They dampen school spirit, burden staff. So I was just trying to take like three sets of community, I guess. So that's going to be the hardest part. This is where I say that writing a thesis is more of an art than a science because you want to be succinct. You've seen on past papers where I've said tighten. You want to be really precise with the word choice for your thesis and for each of these arguments. So number 5, the last thing you're going to do is evaluate the words in your thesis. Replace weak or vague words with stronger, more precise vocabulary. And, I'd like for you to avoid weak verbs, such as forms of to be, to have, to get, to go. Okay, so these are the steps, and we're going to divide this into 2 parts. So Tuesday, today in class, oh my goodness, I don't have my tech support at home right now. Okay, so you guys are going to get this. This is posted. Hold on. Okay, let's do this. So you've got a worksheet that looks like this. And so that first, this is going to be your rough draft, and then you're going to do a second one that's going to be revised. So first part, proposed thesis. That's going to be your central claim plus 3 main arguments. And then following that are the first, second, and third supporting arguments. Now, each of those arguments are expressed in your thesis, but they're also going to become their own paragraph. So you're going to write like a topic sentence here. And eventually we'll start calling these confirmation point 1, 2, and 3. Then the final thing is you're going to look at the opposing arguments, and you are going to list one opposing argument and a second opposing argument. Now, why are you doing this? Well, when you speak or you write, you are constantly trying to show your ethos to the reader or audience. Remember, ethos is credibility. And it boosts your credibility quite a bit if you can acknowledge that there's an opposing viewpoint and if you can speak to it. So there's lots of people that are super passionate about their opinion, but it is a very wise person who can acknowledge people disagree with me. And when we get to writing this portion of it, you're going to learn how to acknowledge the disagreement, how to find one point of commonality or agreement, and then how to defeat their position respectfully. And so this is really, really important. Right now it might not make sense, but you just want to pick 2 things from the opposing viewpoint and you're going to write them down. When you complete this sheet, you need to complete it all in complete sentences. And I am going to give you an example of mine. Oh my goodness, this just looks like so much. But okay, look at the proposed thesis. See, my central claim is in red. The U.S. should fund a physical wall for its border with Mexico because. So you guys have a central claim. And then I have 3 reasons, and they are in 3 different color pen because I want you to see how the reasons I list in my thesis are actually supporting arguments. So let's just read this. The U.S. should fund a physical wall for its border with Mexico because governments should maintain border security. History proves the effectiveness of walls and illegal immigration is costly to taxpayers. So you'll notice what I've done is have parallel form by having a clause. Every one of my points is a clause. It's the subject verb. And then the points that I mentioned in the thesis, those are my supporting arguments. So I guess you could say that I wrote like a topic sentence here. Governments are responsible to keep a country's borders secure. Okay, that's my first supporting argument. And I put it up here in an abbreviated form. Okay, my second supporting argument. History shows that walls are effective in preventing illegal immigration. You can see that in green up in my thesis. And then third supporting, illegal immigration costs American taxpayers. And you can see that in orange up in my thesis. So you should see, and let me just give you a coaching hint. When you're writing this, I would actually start with your supporting arguments. Like figure out what your supporting arguments are and write them in complete sentences. And then you can go back up to proposed thesis, write your central claim, and try to reword your supporting arguments so that they're concise and they're parallel. Okay, and then finally, the opposing arguments. So what I did is I picked arguments that I knew I'd have a response for. So the first opposing argument is that improving the legal process of immigration would decrease illegal immigration better than border walls. So lots of people are like, oh, border walls, they're not compassionate. Why don't we just give better legal forms? And I already know that that's a great idea, but it doesn't mean you can't build a wall. So I know that I can agree with it, and then I have a response. And the second opposing argument, border walls are not effective. So, or border walls alone are not effective. And again, I know that I have a response for that. You don't need your response listed here, but you do need to have 2 opposing arguments. Okay, so listen carefully. Here's what you are going to do. And I'm challenged by those of you that are remote learning, whether that's your permanent status or whether you're quarantining, because what we're going to do, what we did today is I had everybody complete one of these sheets. They did a rough draft. Okay, I'd like for you to do that. Then I'd like for you to do another sheet that is a revision. And what we're going to do in class on Thursday is we're going to get in pairs and we're going to peer edit. And it's really helpful to get somebody else to help you. So you can get a parent, you can get an older sibling, you can reach out to each other, okay? But I would like you to get some input on this. And 2 things I want you to look for. 1, I want your thesis to be well expressed. I want your points to be in parallel form. I want them to tie to your 3 supporting arguments. And then I want each of your arguments to be well stated. So you'll get feedback from somebody, and then you will write a revised. So you'll have 2 of these. And I would like for you to upload them both to Google Classroom if you're going to be out of school for a while. Or actually, that's my preference. I'd like it uploaded to Google Classroom. Next Tuesday, when we come back to school, we're going to be moving on. So each due date is so important. So would you upload those to Google Classroom, both forms? And this is worth 25 points. I will give you feedback. You may do some additional revisions, but this is a very important assignment. Next week, we're going to start outlining our mini thesis. So that's going to be fun. Get excited about that. But when you finish this and you upload it to Google Classroom, you're done. You have the weekend off, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Email me with any questions.